I learned that the rejection was, every no got me closer to a yes. That not every product was perfect, but I could take those same skills, even in failure, and translate them.
If you introduce compassion and you look at the needs of the people that work for you right from the beginning, I think you're going to have stronger companies, less turnover, and better results. My thing is learning whatever's new and applying it in ways that other people aren't thinking of.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 to 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 to 9. This one's for my top 10.
If you come up with an idea where you say, I can make dollar bills for 50 cents, would you go out and raise money, or would you just go out and sell it? You just go out and do it, and that's what you have to do. And look, we all go through that fear factor of, do I quit my job? Can I do this? Can I do this, and what happens next? The one thing I know with 100% certainty, and what I would tell myself is, if I can sell and become a better and better salesperson and be great at selling, I'm always going to be successful whether I'm working for myself or if the company that I started just didn't work. I'll give you an example. Out of Indiana, before I went down to Dallas, I needed to start something. And I decided that everybody drank milk, and I found this product, powdered milk, that was cheaper, and everybody needed to save money. And I was going to go out there and sell it because it was cheaper. Now, it didn't taste quite as good. And so but I went out there to try to sell it. Failed miserably. But I learned how to make the sales effort even when things weren't going right. I learned that the rejection was, every no got me closer to a yes. That not every product was perfect, but I could take those same skills, even in failure, and translate them. So that what I learned selling garbage bags door to door, what I learned from selling powdered milk that was awful, what I learned from selling local area networks at Micro Solutions, all those things accumulated, and I got better at selling. So I always knew, people always say to me, if you lost everything, what would you do? I can sell. I can sell. And it's not about selling ice to Eskimos. It's not about, convincing people to do this. Selling is always about helping. Selling is always about understanding the person you're talking to and what their needs are. And if someone can help me make my life easier, yeah. People, now with employees, people always say, well, what's the definition of a great employee? Someone who can reduce the stress of those around them. And it's the same thing. What's the definition of a great salesperson? Someone who can reduce the stress of their salespeople. And if in looking at your company and looking at your life and looking at your goals, if you're able to go out there and recognize that whether it works or doesn't work, you're putting yourself in a position where you're helping somebody, not convincing somebody, and you're reducing their stress, you're gonna be okay. It's gonna work out. And that's the confidence I've built in myself that wasn't necessarily always there. But I learned that if I try to help, if I reduce people's stress, good things can happen.
What is your thing, and when did you kind of understand what it was?
It hasn't changed. My thing is learning whatever's new and applying it in ways that other people aren't thinking of. And so when I got fired from a job selling software, started a company, and within 6 months, this was the early days of PCs, I recognized that, okay, we need to connect PCs together. Back then, you walked around and you had your 5.25-inch floppy, and who would need to connect a PC? We started, writing software for local area networks, became a systems integrator, $30-some million run rate, and sold it to H&R Block. And then got to the internet. Okay, let's look at this internet thing. Someone's going to need to put audio and then video on there. Great. And then after Yahoo did Yahoo, right, I'm like, you know what? I'm looking at these big screen TVs that cost $30,000 that are high definition television sets, and I'm thinking, you know what? Eventually, they're going to follow the price performance curve of traditional consumer electronics. and they're going to come down in price. So I started the first all high definition TV network called HDNet. Then I'm looking and saying, okay, you know what? It's like 2006, 2007, and traditional television and cable is going digital. I'm saying, you know what? There's going to be a lot of storage space and first access digital space that cable companies aren't used to using. So let's take a movie production company that we created and let's make it available for day and date distribution where people will pay $20 to the cable company to watch this brand new movie, and we get to keep 10 of it. And so we had 29 productions. We started producing movies, and lo and behold, the first movie we created was a documentary called Enron, the Smartest Guys in the Room. Got nominated for Academy Award, then we didn't really create any good ones after that, but by being first leveraging digital storage, we were able to take advantage and make a lot of money. And in the NBA with the Mavericks, just doing those types of things, and it's what I like to do now.
I grew up, my dad did upholstery on cars. My mom did odd jobs. My mom, when I was in high school, was worried about whether or not I could have a career and, made sure she hooked me up with a family friend to learn how to lay carpet because she wanted me to know a trade just in case things didn't pan out, if and when I went to college. So yeah, it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is destiny and, my parents are going to hook me up or, I knew this was going to happen. It was, who the hell knows what's going to happen, but I was all in for wherever direction it went.
You talked about companies having a unique advantage. Can you speak more on that for me, please?
Sure. I mean, what is it that a customer can get from you that they can't get from anybody else? And you have to be very careful with that too. When I just talked about lying to yourself as an entrepreneur, because often we'll say, well, it's just like Uber, but it has pink cars. Uber doesn't have pink cars. That's a difference without a distinction, right? Lots of times people get confused between what's a product and what's a feature. Pink Uber cars, that's a feature. That's not a unique product. Excuse me. So you have to know what it is that you do that is so unique, your potential customers say, whoa, I did not know that. As opposed to, well, let me go tell Uber that they should probably add pink cars. Because whenever you're competing with, all of you are going to compete with Amazon at some point, if you're not already. Just the reality. And so you've got to understand, when Amazon starts looking at my customer base, what is it that I can convey to them that makes me unique? And that's what I meant by unique difference.
Now I'm going through and teaching myself neural networks and doing the same thing with machine learning and GANs and this and that, because AI is going to have more of an impact than the internet did. AI plus new types of chipsets plus 5G is going to change things far more than we've ever seen anything change. And understanding where and how to apply it is going to be critical, but just as important, knowing how to segregate and separate the bullshit, right, is as important, because every email y'all are about to send me is going to say, I have this AI solution and we're using algorithms. Yeah, of course you are, right? And then what? What really makes you different? What really sets you apart? But if I didn't do that work, if I didn't sit down and do the AWS machine learning tutorials, if I didn't go on YouTube and take, the NYU Introduction to Neural Networks or whatever, I'm not going to know it, I'm not going to be able to apply it, and I'm not going to be able to be first. And that's fun. That's fun. Knowing I get to kick the ass of some 22-year-old NYU graduate, that's awesome.
Dad busted his ass. I mean, he worked six days a week, left at 7:30 in the morning, got back at 6 or 7 o'clock, lost his eye in an accident doing upholstery. He had a staple break when he was putting some covering on a car seat. It was a middle-class upbringing. My mom did odd jobs. They just wanted something better. I mean, my grandparents came over from Russia, and, my dad was the first generation. My uncles were the first generation Americans, like my mom too. And, like every child of immigrants, they wanted better for their kids.
It's funny. I mean, a lot of people grow up that way, right? But not many people end up like you. So what do you think that's the result of?
I think, everybody's got something that they're good at, and the hard part is just finding it. And I found out early that I was a good salesperson, that I really liked business. Like I like sports. I mean, I read everything I possibly could, played sports as much as I could, just wasn't as good as I wanted to be. And business was the same way. I mean, as long as I could remember, I was buying and selling baseball cards, garbage bags, whatever I could find, stamps, to collectors. But I was also reading everything I possibly could about business. And, you know, I was that unusual kid that I'd rather read about Ted Turner than go to the movies. And so I think that created a foundation. And my parents, you know, my dad used to always say, I don't understand what you're doing, but I'm glad you're doing it. And so I had my ups and downs along the way, of course. But I just think that I just put in the time and was fortunate enough to really get excited about business, and that paid off benefits over the long run.
Never been shy to speak up on issues that are important to you.
Yep.
And one of those themes I've found has been around fairness. And whether that's, you know, calling out referees for not calling games consistently, or, you know, calling out a Shark Tank contestant because you think that they're scamming their customers. Right. How do you decide what you're going to speak up on, or do you hold inside?
You know, it's changed over the years because I have kids, because social media, you know, Twitter in particular, is so much different, and has changed kind of the rules of engagement. It's changed because of what I went through with the Mavericks last year. I missed a sexual harassment problem that we had because I took my eye off the ball. And so, you know, I try to be self-aware and try to put myself in the shoes of the person or people or organization I'm talking about, whether it adds value. I try to put myself in the position, my own position. You know, how's it going to be perceived? And, you know, is it worth it? You know, will it create more good than challenges? Right. And so you've got to pick your spots. How people perceive entrepreneurs is changing dramatically, and how entrepreneurs are contributing to society is changing right now as we speak. And I see it on Shark Tank, right? Companies coming on Shark Tank now, particularly from younger entrepreneurs, have a social component, right? You don't want to buy something unless you think the company is contributing. Right. And even more so now, a lot of people are saying, you know what, if you're an entrepreneur and you happen to get rich, that's bad, right? And so the entrepreneurs, people particularly my generation, have kind of segregated themselves into, okay, just get me all the money I can, into, okay, can be such a thing as compassionate capitalism. And really, it's falling on you guys now to set the message. If you are going to be an entrepreneur, having a social component is good. Being a compassionate entrepreneur is better. Because when you can change things, when you can hire people, like I had to go back through the companies that I control now, and I said I wanted to make sure that nobody who works for, in particular the Arena and the Mavs, is on public assistance. Because it's wrong, I think it's wrong, that somebody who works for me doesn't make enough money to be on public assistance. That's the type of attitude I think that needs to change now with entrepreneurs. And that's now becoming part of your responsibility, and I think that's critically important. You know, guys like me, women like me can look and backtrack and backfill and where we've made mistakes, and I've made plenty and I've learned from them. But it's your opportunity, and I think it's critically important to recognize that you are going to set the tone for how people perceive entrepreneurs going forward. And if you introduce compassion and you look at the needs of the people that work for you right from the beginning, I think you're going to have stronger companies, less turnover, and better results.
Treating people equally is not the same, is not recognizing who they truly are and taking advantage of their skills. You know, and I've learned that through Cint. I've learned that through all this. And, you know, like Cint and I talk, we'll be a much better organization. I'll be a better exec. I'll be a better investor. I'll be a better shark because I recognize that, you know, treating people equally is not the same as treating them, recognizing their skills and their differences. And for this audience, it's critically important, you know. And I think there's an opportunity now, and I know hopefully, you know, people like me will recognize that the old white guys, now newly old white guys that are in positions of power, that there are things that you can do that I can't do. That there are things you see that I don't see. There are opportunities that you can create that I can't create. You know, we were trying to sell to the black community through the Mavs with multiple white men. We were trying to sell to moms with multiple white men. It's not that they're not capable. It's not that they're not skilled. It's just everybody brings something different to the table. And as an entrepreneur, you have to recognize what the differences are that you bring to the table, and you have to be brutally honest with yourself, right? You can't lie to yourself like We all lie to ourselves as entrepreneurs. But those differences can be part of your unique skill set, like I talked about earlier. And now I'm finally starting to recognize those things. And you know the one thing I know? It's going to make me a load more money.
You ready to help us get the country really hooked on our smoked fish dip?
Fish is good. The ones that have made me the most money have always been the craziest. Don't quit your day job.
Oh my God!
But I got to volunteer to come up.
Can we both?
That's a little bit too weird for me. Can you do this? You don't want to get into a pillow fight with me. Oh, I'm going to destroy you, Robert.
We're not pillow fighting. Oh my God! Oh.
Get up, you wuss.
Who knocked Robert on the ground?